Hi, and welcome to Just Us Performance Troupe presents Stories of Us, our 2021 production. The students you're about to see each enrolled in a course, Come to 11, Storytelling and Culture, and throughout the semester, they learned a research method, autoethnography, that says before we start researching other people and their cultures, we need to understand ourselves and the culture we're in. And each of them has chosen a story of who they are that has a message for others. They've come to give you 3 acts. The first are stories of family and belonging. The second are stories from the bodies we're in. And the third is stories of our opportunities and where we're going. Thanks so much for being here, and please, if you have a moment, leave us a comment. We'd love to talk to you more.
Saturday morning breakfast, it had always been us 5. Well, us 9 if you count the grandparents, eager to hear what updates their granddaughters were bringing to the table. A spread of fresh out of the oven breakfast favorites filled the table, and it was the last Saturday, at least the last for a while, that would carry this familiar, worn-in feeling. Between bites of cinnamon roll and sips of coffee, my mother posed the question, how would you all feel about us taking custody of another girl? A 17-year-old. Potential realities begin to fill our heads. Another person to share toothpaste with, another voice asking Dad for help with math homework, another person to shop for when Christmas came around. It didn't take long for us all to respond that we were on board, that it felt like the right thing to do, that maybe it would even be fun. Sunday night dinner rolled around, and it did feel familiar. Like other weeks, we sat on the back deck, and like other weeks, my sisters and I collected plates and silverware to set the table. Like other weeks, my dad prepared a feast for us on the grill. But unlike other weeks, there were 6 of us coming to the table, or 10 of us if you count the grandparents. Her dinners never felt like this, and ours would never feel the same. It felt like a trust fall, full surrender. Here, my family is yours. Here, borrow any of my things. Here, you're a stranger, but that won't stop me from sharing every intimate aspect of the life I've held as my own for the last 18 years. The days passed, and our routine became hers, as her history became part of our future. Lives intertwined, strings tangling, just enough that sometimes we trip and have to realign to move forward. Not a sprint, but a delicately spun up path that we were all walking together for the first time.
This story begins on a day that was not unlike any other day, except for one small part that changed my life. I woke up in my bed with the usual feeling of a single blanket without any sheets over my body. I was always getting hot at night, and I would constantly push the uncomfortable bed sheets to the foot of the bed and make it harder for my mom to make it up in the morning. I got up to start my usual routine, go to the bathroom, brush my teeth, and eat breakfast. Not necessarily always in that order. As I walked down the shag-carpeted hallway on the 2nd floor of my house, I hear a voice downstairs. "Hey Nate, could you meet me in the playroom? I want to talk to you for a minute." The voice is my mother's calling from the kitchen downstairs. I yell back, "Yes ma'am, just let me use the bathroom and brush my teeth first." I walk through the glass door that separates the playroom from the rest of the 2nd floor. As I emerge from around the corner, I see my younger sister Chloe and my mom sitting on the brown leather couch in the center of the room. My older sister Libby would have probably been there too, but she was already at college. "Come and sit down, Nate," my mom says, looking up at me from the couch. I sit and feel the old cracked leather cold from the night before hit my legs. Ooh! I whine a little bit from the coldness in an attempt to give my sister a laugh, and she lets out a small chuckle. My mom redirects our attention to her. "So you guys know how me and your dad have been for a while, right?" Me and Chloe agree it has been pretty miserable having to watch our parents fight so much. I've done some research, and I found a townhouse I'm going to be moving into in a couple of months. My mind goes blank as I look up to see that Chloe's already in tears. "I don't want you and Dad to get divorced," she says. I don't hear what my mom says next. It was probably something along the lines of, "It'll be better this way," or how cool it would be to have 2 houses. Despite the objections given by my mother, the initial thought I had was how hard it was going to be to have divorced parents. But Chloe bringing this up subtle already made me think of my responsibilities as an older brother. I had to be there to comfort and look out for her when she needed it. My mother's voice comes back in. "Do you guys have any questions?" I didn't speak up at the time. I wish I had, but all the questions I would have ever asked have gotten answered over the years. "No," both me and Chloe reply. At this point, the sadness in Chloe's eyes told me that we weren't going to be living the same life anymore, and we weren't going to be the same people anymore. "It's just down the street, and you guys will be able to see either of us whenever you want anyways." My mom's trying to make us feel better, but in some ways, it seemed like our entire world was ending. But with everything bad comes something good. The main thing being that we haven't had to watch our parents fight since that day, and I'm still thankful for that. "I love you guys no matter what," my mom says, and kisses us both on the forehead and gives us a hug. Maybe this is going to turn out to be a good thing, and sure enough it did, and I got to watch both of my parents marry the love of their lives.
I'm 14, pacing around my kitchen, waiting for what I thought was my mom's gay best friend from high school. Now, this had never been confirmed, but my mom's stereotypes, he fit all the stereotypes that my mom had built for him. I was so excited. This was going to be the best friend group ever. Me, my mom, and her gay best friend. So, imagine my surprise and disappointment when I found out that my mom's assumptions about her friend who loved Broadway musicals and red wine wasn't true, and they had been dating for almost 2 full weeks. Now, as a single child with a single parent for almost 8 years, this was not gonna fly. It took months, okay years, and a golf cart of me writing in my diary to be okay with this transition. But sooner rather than later, Chris stepped in and showed me what it felt like to be loved like a daughter. You see, not a lot of kids where I grew up with only one parent. Everybody had a mom and a dad in the home, and not a lot of my friends related to me. So, while it was later in my life than I would have liked, Chris stepped in and showed me what it looked like to be loved absolutely, unconditionally. And that's the story of how my mom's gay best friend is the best thing that has ever happened to me, but in a way different way than I could have ever imagined.
Middle school is rough for everyone, from trying to fit in to discovering more about ourselves and the people around us, with hormones. My 7th grade schedule started like this: school, then homework, then yes, always Netflix, then sleep. By homework, I precisely mean math, every day with a side of identity crisis. No horseback riding from 4 to 5:30 for me. Being bad at math led to many things. 4 out of the 5 days, I would be in the math room with the math teacher, going over my poor test scores and trying to figure out how to do multiplication and division without using my fingers. I cried over C's in that room. Those walls saw everything. Lunch was the break between classes where I could just exist and not tumble over communicating in my second language. But I had to be in the math room looking at the math quotes written in English, not in French. I wasn't eating mon flan in a plastic cup or had mon jambon beurre for lunch. Sometimes I just cried everything. My different home, my different friends. I would break open in the middle of the school day and run to my covers and TV shows when the sky turned black. But there were goldfish in my math teacher's patience. Fast forward, spring 2021, I'm in my 2nd semester of college, and my social justice and language professor has just assigned us a journal, which begs us to answer what social justice means to us. It's a class with upperclassmen, so I'm sitting there trying to figure out how to approach it in the most mature way possible. But like every good paper has an outline, I didn't even have the foundation to start answering this question. I realize right there that I have not been investing in being here in North Carolina, in North America. 7 years go by and yeah, I try to follow the news and politics, but there's no fuel. There's no passion. Have I just been existing? Surely not. I've worked hard on myself, trying not to cry on lunch breaks and all. So yes, I had been creating a bubble in being away from my homeland. But like math, a subject that I try to avoid and not think about, I learned a lot from the interactions around it with my teacher. And I can do the same on the campus of UNCW by uncovering my truths through assignments like my social justice journal. So, social justice for all across oceans is the ability to fight under the protection of your humanity for humankind. I'm growing out of my bubble, and I'm really excited to start being more intentional in learning where my feet are walking on. And that is the incredible power of intentionality.
It is October of 2020. I'm 21 years old, sitting on the couch in the family room of my apartment. I get a phone call from a number I don't immediately recognize, but I assume it's my gynecologist. We've been playing phone tag for days. Miss Cunningham, the results have come back in regard to the test of your thyroid. The levels for your thyroid itself, those being your T3 and T4 levels, are normal. However, as indicated by the high number of antibodies you have, we can confirm that you have an autoimmune disorder called Hashimoto's thyroid disease. This is a chronic illness you likely inherited from a family member. What? You're telling me I have Hashimoto's? What does this even mean? Well, your immune system thinks that your thyroid is a foreign, threatening object and continually attacks it. She continued to tell me that the average person has antibody levels of about 14, while mine were 226. I chuckled to myself with pride. Out of all the places to surpass my peers and get a high score, this is where I would do it. I'm sure the medical assistant who called me that day was taken back by my happy and excited tone, but it was true. I was happy. This might be the best day of my life. I was elated because for the past 7 years, my life had been wrecked by a tornado. From ages 14 to 21, I experienced severe symptoms to extreme degrees. And that tornado lived inside of me. I faced the lows of depression on a constant basis. Panic attacks where lightning would strike my bloodstream and send fast electrical currents through my veins were simply the norm. In a moment's notice, a hot flash could arrive on my skin and make my face feel like the surface of the sun. The stomach that once belonged to a young, healthy girl now threw up consistently without any clear reason and suffered a laundry list of GI issues. Even doctors didn't know what to do. I grew up a really happy kid, but before I knew it, my once calm mind became riddled with obsessive thoughts and anxious feelings. 2 weeks of every month, I would fall into despair like a sinking ship. This ship would flood with suicidal thoughts and episodes of sobbing and hopelessness due to a chaotic hormonal imbalance. Mental health specialists didn't know what to do with my wild hormones or stomach problems, let alone find a successful treatment for my emotions. Stomach doctors didn't know why my stomach was a wreck and couldn't find a clear diagnosis. Primary care told me to go on more walks, try praying about it, and count my blessings. But luckily, today, my gynecologist had information for me. Now, at this point in 2020, I was taking medicine to support my emotion, eating incredibly clean with foods that didn't have any gluten or dairy, avoiding soda, drinking smoothies after the gym, taking tons of supplements and a probiotic, and essentially, my symptoms were like a calm stream I just had to keep my eye on with some daily practices. But regardless, I now had Hashimoto's. I had a disease of my thyroid. And your thyroid regulates your metabolism, digestion, brain function, hormones, and more. And it was malfunctioning. Immediately after the phone call with my OBGYN, I called my own mom. Mom, I want you to bake me a cake that says congrats on your Hashimoto's. She laughed. She knew how happy I was to have a diagnosis. Later, I went to the gym and I ran on the treadmill to Happy by Pharrell Williams. After a 7-year battle, I had a diagnosis.
Elementary school. The days where my only concern was if my iPod Touch had enough battery to last me until the bus ride home. It was a long and dark bus ride, but luckily I had Pocket God and Temple Run downloaded on my iPod, so it went by fast. Arriving at New Eagle Elementary School in Pennsylvania, I had on my white G-Shock watch, my custom Nike ID shoes, my John Hopkins lacrosse shirt, and my Flow Society shorts. I was truly swagged out. It was the first day of first grade. I remember walking into the classroom and seeing a big rug full of vibrant cities and bright blue oceans. I loved walking all over the rug like I was King Kong. However, today was the first day of first grade. Our teacher wanted us to meet with 4 other students. I was very anxious but really excited. I remember talking to Jack about activity. God knows what us 6 to 7-year-olds were talking about, probably kickball or wall ball. And all of a sudden, we sat at our desks. I met with Jack, Jamia, and Henry. I remember talking to Henry about the upcoming spelling quiz, and all of a sudden, I felt a painful yank on my arm. Ouch! It was Jack. He was sticking mechanical pencils on the hair on my arm and pulling on it. I immediately turned red in the face and began comparing my arms to other boys' arms throughout the class. Realizing that I was the hairiest, I acted like I did not care. As soon as I got home, I ran up to my dad's office. Dad, why am I hairier than everybody else? He said, Matt, son, you are Italian. You should be proud. You have Italy in your blood. I have hair everywhere. Your great-grandparents were straight off the boat. When I got older, I began to understand what really happened in first grade. I began to understand my identity and culture. No matter the age, people have different ethnicity and history, no matter what. Loving strombolis, calzones, prosciutto, pasta is not a bad trait to have. I'm an Italian from Philadelphia with hairy arms, and I am proud of it.
For the 6th month in a row, I'm lying on the floor in fetal position, screaming from the pain of what feels like a knife twisting in my lower abdomen. It's that time of month again, but what me and my mom realized was that a 10-year-old who just started puberty shouldn't be having the issues that I'm having. So we go to the doctor, just any old OBGYN that my pediatrician recommended to us. But to my dismay, it was an old white man. It was so embarrassing. It was like talking to my dad about my personal issues. After consultation and closer examination, it was determined that I had polycystic ovarian syndrome, or PCOS. The man explained that I had cysts growing on my ovaries, and that was what was causing my extreme hair growth, my whacked out hormones, my insanely painful periods, and being classified as overweight. It was to my understanding that this was what was causing my hair to fall out. I may never have children, and I'll always be overweight, even if I do keep a well-balanced diet and exercise. I also will never be as feminine as a normal girl because one of the symptoms of the syndrome is overproduction of testosterone. The man prescribed me with 3 different medications to take 2 times a day for the rest of my life. 10-year-old me was mortified. No wonder I was bigger and more muscular than most of the kids my age. Fast forward to high school, I'm still broader and stronger than most of the boys in my graduating class, and I hated it. One memory in particular that sticks out to me to this day. I was helping one of my teachers rearrange furniture in her classroom, and one of my friends came up to me, and he goes, "Dude, you're built like a truck." And the first thought that popped through my brain was, wow, that was extremely rude. And he could see it. It was written all over my face. So immediately he goes, no. I mean that in the best way possible. You're a really strong woman. And that day I did realize that it actually wasn't such a bad thing. And when I finally got it through my head that it was a compliment, I started owning up to the way I was built. Yeah, I am built like a truck, but I'm also just as feminine as any other girl in this town. Being feminine doesn't have a normal look. Being feminine is being confident in yourself. It's loving yourself, and it's taking care of yourself. And when I realized that you can be feminine and still keep up with the boys in the gym, my insecurities quieted.
In high school, I attended a club fair for the usual reasons. As we all know, finding a hobby, something to do, something to belong to. It was fall and turning winter fast. Brown leaves clinging to trees, and there I was in the center of this large concrete courtyard, a ring of booths and too many people to count surrounding me. I was anxious. But then, it was almost as if the crowd parted. And a person running a booth made eye contact with me and waved me over. Being a passive person who usually did what he was told, I went. And she asked me if I wanted to join the improv club. So I said yes. It was something that I had a passing interest in, so I went. And it was a lot of fun. So I went again, and continued going. I even took some drama classes in high school. And now, even in college, I'm still doing it. I've been in plays here on campus. I'm minoring in theater. It's become something I want to include in my life. It's something I belong to. All because someone waved me over. I was invited. It was almost as if the universe reached out to me. And now, I'm a part of something. So, maybe, next time you see someone who might want to belong, reach out. Just might change their life. Changed mine.
Where to begin? I guess let's just say my life revolved around sports growing up. I played just about everything under the sun. I played football, basketball, baseball, lacrosse, soccer, and even a little bit of ultimate frisbee every once in a while. But when it came down to what I found myself best at, it was always football. So I made the decision to stick to it pretty early on. Now the problem with football is that it comes with a lot of contact. And with a lot of contact comes plenty of opportunities for potential injuries. And in my case, the injuries that seemed most prominent were concussions. Now, one concussion doesn't seem all that bad, and quite honestly, it really isn't. But when you pile a few on top of one another over a short period of time, the repercussions tend to be slightly more severe. Me personally, I've been diagnosed with 4, and that's not to mention any of the ones I never said anything about. So when I made the decision to go play in college, my parents gave me a fairly short leash. Which brings me to my most recent one. I woke up in a pitch black room, nobody around me, no windows, no television, nothing. I didn't know where I was, or who I was with, or even what day it was. All I wanted to do was call my mom. But the silhouette of a man standing next to me whispered that I wasn't allowed to. And I remember never in my life had I been so scared, so alone, so vulnerable. The only information I had was that I was severely concussed, and that I was in the hospital. And for 48 hours I sat in a dark as night room with a dimmed television the size of a dinner plate playing in the corner. The man I was told was my doctor came up to me and told me that I would be getting released in a few hours. So he handed me a pair of the largest sunglasses I have ever seen and told me that my coach would be here to get me soon. And it was at this point when I started piecing things together, figuring out exactly where I was and what had happened to me. It was also at this point where I hit a bit of a fork in the road. My whole life goal was always to go play college football, and I had reached that goal. I was perfectly happy with where I was and how I was doing, but my health said otherwise. For the betterment of myself and my future, my parents and I made the decision that playing football was no longer something that was in my best interests. And I was told anyways that if I had got another concussion, then I was going to have to be medically disqualified. So when I made the decision to stop playing, it wasn't necessarily something I hadn't thought about. Now, the situation really isn't all that bad. It turns out that my best friend in the entire world, the guy that I met in a McDonald's playpen when we were 2, and the guy that I still live with to this day, he also went to go play college football. And he also, at the same time as I was just contemplating whether or not to stop due to injury. And after speaking with one another over everything that had happened to us and where we were at in life, we both made the decision that we would transfer back in state and to go to school here in Wilmington. And I promise you this, I wouldn't change a thing. I tell people this story because you never know what the future holds. I would have never moved to Wilmington if it wasn't for that concussion, and quite honestly, I don't think I'd be the same person I am today without it. Thank you.
I grew up in a religiously Protestant, politically conservative household. For the first 18 or so years of my life, I surrounded myself with friends, family, and people who held the same religious, political, and ideological beliefs as me. I took this all for granted and assumed this was just how it was. I guess you could say I was a product of my environment. However, that all changed when I first came down to Wilmington for college. My second semester here, I took a philosophy and religion class titled Introduction to the New Testament, which gave a critical view of the text. At first, I had a strong aversion to what the professor was saying, as this was one of the first times in my life that I was presented with a viewpoint that differed from that of my own. As time went on, however, I also began to think critically of the worldview that had been ingrained in me since childhood. Through research of factual evidence, I began to form my own opinions of the material and realized that as a young adult, I would have to make my personal beliefs personal to myself, not to my family, and not to my friends. I saw myself grow and mature as a person, and I realized that a true sign of maturity and growth comes from allowing one's thoughts and opinions to be subjectively shaped by certain experiences. I still have much love for my friends and family back home, even if our thoughts and opinions do not always line up accordingly. Now I consider myself a humanist, a centrist. I hope to continue this growth and change I've experienced in the past few years throughout college and beyond. By opening ourselves up to new thoughts, experiences, and ways of life, we can truly change the world and make it a better place for all.
The fall of 2019. I was killing it my first semester at university. I was making good grades, great friends, and I even found an awesome fraternity to be a part of, but then 2020 came along. What happened? I looked to a journal entry I wrote last February, and I had said, World War III, Australia burning to a crisp, Kobe tragically dying, and now there's talk of some murder hornets? Man, 2020 is off to a rough start. Here's hoping it gets better from here. How little did I know. I'm sure you all know where this is going. So, coronavirus came along just in time to give us the longest spring break ever. And it just so happens my family and I are moving out of my childhood home of 15 years into a new one on March 1st. Yeah. Great timing, right? So here I am moving out of college, back in this unfamiliar environment, and it just seemed like life kind of started to slip. You see, lockdown led to a life filled with vices and addictions, and I realize now in hindsight, I think my friends and I just used these things to cope with the fact that we were watching our youth change right before our eyes. As the epidemic turned into a pandemic, it felt like society started to slip as well. I remember waking up every morning and seeing people rioting, buildings burning, people dying. And then things got personal when my best friend's dad suddenly passed away just like that. You know, I could really start to feel myself lose grip on things. And most people would turn to religion at this point. And, you know, I usually would too, but no, not this time. I'm angry. I'm angry at God. See, when I start asking questions of why and I get answers of, oh, he works in mysterious ways, or oh, he has a plan for you. That is just not enough for me anymore. It honestly makes me furious. What kind of mysterious way allows for a man to beg for his life on the ground for 8 minutes and 46 seconds when the only difference between him and I is the color of our skin? What kind of plan allows for a disease to come and ravage the earth, killing millions and ruining the lives of countless of others? What kind of God comes and takes away a good man, a good dad, hurting me, but more importantly, scarring my best friend? Why? See, losing my faith was a byproduct of 2020, but in 2021, I think I have something new to believe in, a new faith, if you will. You. Even you, and yeah, especially you. All of us. Each other. See, well, I don't think I would have made it through last year if it wasn't for my friends, and I honestly don't know how anyone could have made it through that alone. And if last year taught me anything, it's that I have a group of friends that are ready to pick me up whenever I'm down, and I have a group of friends that truly love me. And that gives me hope for 2021. Because you see, y'all, we gotta get through this. We have to get through this. We are going to get through this because I believe that we are better and that we are stronger than this. And y'all, one day the sun is going to shine upon us again and we are all going to celebrate because we made it. And we're going to make it together.